These are some of the things I produce now.
I mean, anytime you have an entity, it doesn't matter if it's a company or if it's government or if it's a person, if it's your parents saying, this is what you're going to do, you only have one choice. And it poses a bit of a problem. It doesn't matter if it's food or transportation or what.
Can you imagine floating weightless, like a satellite in the black sky? I dream about things way beyond this atmosphere.
And seemingly overnight, a booming industry was born with fixed operations at its center. The back of the store had become the belle of the ball, with podcasts, marketing, and AI all wanting a turn on the dance floor. In the dimly lit corner of an automobile dealership, where the aroma of engine oil lingered in the air, a young man embarked on an extraordinary journey that would forever shape his perspective on leadership. This is where my story began, as an apprentice technician, with a past overshadowed by homelessness and adversity. They've come up with a name for it: creative marketing. I write copy, do voiceover, I interview guests, and I'm an audio engineer. And I didn't go to school for any of this. Well, not technically. These are all skill sets that I picked up along the way in my 49 years on this earth. I took the long way around to get to where I am today. Maybe you'll see yourself in some of my story, and maybe I can save you some time by highlighting what I did wrong and what I did right. This is Tell Better Stories. Hey guys, I'm Brandon Barnett, and this is Tell Better Stories. If you're insecure, if you have massive insecurities, there's hope for you yet. It took me, and I'm 49 years old. It took me until recently to figure out that I was skill stacking from my 20s. By trying different things all in the creative arts. At one time I wanted to be an actor. Never went through with that. But I did start voice acting. Then, there was music. And then there was recording and editing. And then there was podcasting. There was writing. All these things, I never stuck with any of them completely. Music was probably the most. But I would get to a point, and I always thought that, well, I'm not good enough to do this professionally. And I would go to another thing in that creative sphere. I would play guitar. When I was younger, I thought that I had to know everything about the guitar in order to write songs. All I wanted to do was be the Beatles or the Lemonheads or Nirvana or whatever, right? And I thought you needed a music degree. I was very green, and I would cut myself short every time. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a journalist. Now, I was born in 1974. I graduated in 1992. Okay, so the internet was not on the scene yet. There are so many more opportunities. It started with the blogging thing, and then, but if you look online today, and so many people, especially like on TikTok, which has a lot to do with algorithms and the like, but, these people have massive followings, and the apps made it pretty easy to, shoot video, but we've had to kind of lower our expectations of of quality. It's great that the barrier to entry is minimal now, right? I didn't have that in my time. And so it took me like 20, 30 years before I realized that I could take all these things that back in the day I couldn't get any traction in. I learned how to write. I wrote for some local papers. I couldn't finish school to do it. Because back then you needed a journalism degree or, at least a degree in English. It was all about the college. And I dropped out like 2 or 3 times. I couldn't do it. And like writing, I felt like I was good enough to write, but I couldn't do it professionally. I wrote some things, and I did do it professionally on a small scale for a weekly paper, right at the end of when newspapers kind of went belly up, right? But what I didn't realize that I was doing was I was taking this skill and taking it to one level, and I was actually better at it than I thought. I just wasn't good enough for the time to do it full-time professionally. But the bar has been lowered so much now, and the barrier to entry is nothing, that, you don't need to be Hemingway to put out content. And what took me 20 to 30 years to figure out and to accomplish, you can cut that time down to nothing. The man who chases 2 rabbits catches neither, or whatever. That I always thought that was a detriment I wasn't one of those super talented people that, at least I didn't think I was, that I got bored with an activity and I would jump from thing to thing. It was all insecurity. It was all that I couldn't do this. I can't do this. I'm okay at guitar. I'm okay at writing songs. I'm okay at singing, but put the spotlight on you, I am a songwriter. No, I can't do that. I'm a writer. I am a journalist. I can't do that. I started shooting video to put with some of my audio things. Like I made my own music videos and that sort of thing. But I'm not a filmmaker, But now I realize that I was building an arsenal of things that when I combine all these, I had a sense of story. I had a sense of what made a good story. And I knew enough of the fundamentals, but I didn't get hung up on, well, let me build an outline and make sure, if I need an outline, I make an outline. If I don't, I don't. Sometimes I just feel it. I know what a good story is. It helps to have good taste. And if you catch yourself watching a television show or a movie or reading a book and you're like, how did this get produced? Like, what? This is awful. This is garbage. And you find yourself looking for higher levels of entertainment, then you probably have a more refined palate. Your tastes are probably better than most consumers. And if you want to be a creator and not a consumer, being a snobby consumer is kind of a good start, and that will help you to make better. So you pick something, you aspire to be like, I want to write songs like Paul McCartney or John Lennon, right? Or I want to play guitar like Jay Mascis or whomever. You set that bar really high and you probably won't reach it. I never did. But it's like a stretch goal. It gets you a lot further than if you just sit there and banged on the guitar with no kind of end goal in mind, no vision, no aspiration of, I'd like to be this good. But if you have good taste, and then you see these people that are at the top of their game and you aspire to that, you may not even get there, but you're going to be better than most. And in this day and age, you can produce content. I am now a creative marketer. I didn't go to school for marketing. I didn't go to school for any of this stuff. I write copy. I do voiceover. I sync music. Some things I've produced, I've made my own music for. I write. I put video to things. Sometimes I shoot my own video. There's so much. You can write a book on what I don't know about video. But I know how to tell a story. Because I know as a consumer what I would like as a story. So if you have a snobby side in your taste, you have your finger on the pulse of what is good and what isn't. And then all you have to do is try to get closer to that. If something's crap that you produce, you know it. You'll know it. Would I watch this on my own? And there is a level of surprising yourself where you thought you were at one level, you ended up being better, and you might put something out. Put it out. We all put out things that suck in the beginning, right? That's how you get better. But gradually over time, your tastes will refine, your talents will refine. And if you're one of those people that moves from thing to thing, but it's in a similar field, you can combine that. You might could even be mediocre at a few of the things in your arsenal, but when you put them together and do one thing, like I'm so glad there's a term for creative marketing now, because I didn't know what the hell to call myself for the longest. A storyteller is kind of what I did, singer-songwriter, but it all kind of falls in that, under that umbrella of telling stories for me. So I just kind of say I'm a storyteller. But I'm an audio engineer now. I'm a producer. I'm a voiceover artist. I'm a copywriter. And I'm a musician and a songwriter. Even when I'm not using my own music in things that I put together, I have a sense of dynamics of when for a song to come in and out and how it helps tell the story. All this was based off insecurities because I could not stick with one thing. So if you're insecure and you think that you bounce around from talent to talent, from skill to skill, stop and think about how you might be able to use those if you put those together, because that might be your superpower. And realizing that early on will speed things up, because I didn't know it until retrospect. I looked back and went, oh, I was a good reader. That made me a good writer. That made me a good storyteller. That made me a good podcast producer. That also helped me in music, recording music and trying to record music and figuring out how to mix. You mix music with multiple instruments and then mix a voiceover over a music bed. It is so much simpler because you've been trying to do like all the instruments and all the things. All those things set me up where I tried and I failed and I tried and I failed and I started and I stopped. And now I take all those things and I put them together, and now I'm a creative marketer, right? Which is just a fancy way of saying a jack of all trades in the creative field. You write storytelling type marketing, and you use video, you use audio, you use the written word to get your point across. So your insecurities might not be a bad thing. There's something to be said for people who stick to one thing and they become just a master at it. That's awesome. But there's certain things that they have to outsource and do whatever because they spend all their time on this one thing. And what I've realized in creating content, you know, you may have the writing down, but you might need somebody who knows something about video, or you might need a voiceover artist, or you might need someone who understands music, who knows how to mix, who knows how to edit. Well, if you've been kind of just bouncing around, thinking aimlessly that you were bouncing around, take a deep breath and examine what you've been doing and see if there's anything that you can do as a whole that includes all those things, because you'll realize you don't need to be a master at voiceover if you're a great writer, a great storyteller. You know, my Southern accent, I thought, was my Achilles heel. I lean into it sometimes. You know, I've learned how to turn it off and turn it on. All these things that I used to be so ashamed of and insecure about are now my superpower. And I'm telling you, examine yourself, examine your talents, examine the road you've traveled up until now. And I think you're probably going to find, if you have been trying things that are similar in nature, you're building one hell of an arsenal.